Good morning. Good morning, Senator. It's so good to see you once again.
Good morning, Bawa. Great to see you, my dear friend. Your smile lightens up a room, and in this case, lightens up a transcontinental Zoom conversation.
Thank you. Senator, you are indeed one of the great statesmen of our country, somebody whose life has been dedicated just to serve. And you're an inspiration to so many, especially to me. You were there when we had the inaugural summit at the United Nations on the panel, Restoring Civility. I was particularly struck by your piece in the Wall Street Journal on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And the words that stuck out to me were when you said, we are more ununified than ever. We are more divisive than ever. And we are more unsecure than ever. And our trust in government is the lowest it has been. My God, those were strong words, Senator.
Yeah.
What happened? Where did we come? How did this all begin?
Yeah, well, Bawa, thanks. So again, great to be with you and to talk about these really significant subjects. Very often in public discourse, the focus, particularly today in America, is on the conflict of policies and ideas. Well, that's as old as the American Republic. It existed way back at the Constitutional Convention. But the discourse then, if you read those journals, diaries, transcripts, it was quite civil. They, in some sense, they carried the old formal English legal principles, and it helped to produce a result. So, boy, have we come a long way from that. And you're right. I mean, I'm not a person prone to exaggeration. So I did not enjoy writing those words that you just quoted, but I think that they describe, unfortunately, where American society is now, more divided, I think, than we have ever been in our history around subjects that should not divide us. They're political, but they express changes, I think, that are going on in our society. People are uneasy about changes in population. The demographics are changing. Different ethnic groups, national groups are becoming more populous here. That's the story of our country, but it seems to have unsettled people now. The impact of the digital age and the increasing automation of work has made a lot of people feel that they don't have economic security anymore. And the media too often, including social media, really emphasizes, I'm afraid for the sake too often of profit, conflict between people instead of using this magnificent new means we have of communicating, the internet, digital technology, for constructive purposes. So we got here, it took us a while to get here. If you'll allow me to just go back in my own public service career, in the 1990s, another senator and I, Senator Herb Kohl of Wisconsin, were concerned about the impact of the entertainment culture on America's children. Seems far away from where we are now, but there was too much violence and sex and bad language in the entertainment culture that the kids were watching. When I was growing up in America, there was something on television called a family hour. My parents knew, and everybody's parents knew, that they could sit down and watch TV during that hour. And because the TV industry was self-regulating, nothing offensive would come over the air. In some ways, that all changed with the advent of cable television, because they were not directly controlled by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, and they began to stretch the limits on language, content. And, you know, we argued in Congress that that was actually affecting America's children and their values and their conduct. I will summarize this briefly and say, I had a conversation I can see it now with a lady in a supermarket in New Haven, Connecticut, who came up to me and said, I want to talk to you about what you've been saying about violence and sex in video games, TV, movies, music. She said, it's having an impact on my children. I feel that she said, in a competition with the entertainment culture to raise my children, and they're winning. And we need the help of government. Okay, that's a personal reflection, but carry that forward. Unfortunately, it has affected the discourse of public officials. As I said, at the beginning of our republic here in America, people have had big disagreements, but there was always a sort of formality. I can tell you in the Senate, and a lot of times people arrive in the Senate, they think it's kind of stuffy. You always refer to your colleague, my distinguished colleague. When you interrupt someone on the floor, you say, well, the gentleman from Louisiana yield the floor. You know, it's all, but there's something quite valuable to that. And unfortunately, what we found in our time is that politicians of both parties really have sort of lowered their own discourse as society has lowered its, and it's of course made the problem worse. And President Trump didn't make this problem, but he exacerbated it. And ultimately, the refusal to accept the constitutionally prescribed system of electing a president, and then that outrageous, violent attack on our government to stop the counting of ballots. I mean, that was the end of it, and the worst of it. And I hope that maybe that shook people up to come back. But it seems that kind of behavior seems very far away from the question of civil discourse. Do we talk in ways that are respectful to one another, particularly when we're disagreeing? But it's not. The uncivil discourse makes it difficult for people who have different points of view to ultimately cooperate to get something done for the country. So if I criticize you personally, Bawa, not just your ideas, you're going to naturally be less willing to work with me to try to solve the problem that we're arguing about. That's a long answer, but I think the Center for Responsible Leadership, Dr. Alisa, you, Bawa, are onto something significant here. A lot of our problems in America today would be much better and would be solved if people just began to talk to each other as fellow citizens of America, as fellow children of God, and to remember that.
Very well said, Senator. You summarized so articulately right from the 90s and when the differences start getting exacerbated. To me, that's the reason we started the center, because we saw the way we become so polarized. I remember Senator John McCain, your dear old friend. I may not have agreed with him on policy, but I never for a moment questioned his allegiance, his patriotism, and loyalty to the country. Today, if you don't agree, you're an enemy. What happened here? We can agree to disagree cordially. We can lament all the differences. But Senator, what can we do to restore some of that spirit of coming together for the sake of the nation?
So, Bawa, you're right. And I tell you, I've been blessed with some great friendships in public service. Senator Susan Collins, a bipartisan relationship. We worked together in the Homeland Security Committee, got a lot done for our country because we worked together across party lines. But McCain and I were just the closest of friends. And we did work together on a lot of things. We generally agreed on foreign policy and national security, but we disagreed on a lot of other stuff. And we had some big battles on the floor of the Senate. But, you know, it never affected our relationship or our trust in one another. And that's the key, because I think we both understood that each of us, even when we disagreed, was trying to figure out what was best for our country. And I think that's what most of the public want, although as so often happens now in the modern media age, the divisive forces, the uncivil discourse people, they dominate the dialogue publicly because the media likes that kind of conflict. It's more interesting than if people are agreeing or talking civilly. And look, there's only in a democracy like ours, the ultimate answer is always the people. So the public has to demand of their elected officials that they begin by treating each other with respect for the reasons we've said, and talking civilly to one another, even when they disagree. And frankly, they have to be ready to vote against people who don't do that. And this is we're in a free market economy here. It's a regulated economy, but free market. To use the power of the purse to express our anger and opposition to the division that is foisted on us in many ways by businesses that control media and social media. What I'm saying is turn it off. If there's a station that we think is creating more division in our society than helping inform us, or a website that's doing it, turn it off. Don't use it. Protest, and that's the way to make it better. I will say one quick additional word. Leaders have a disproportionate influence on the values of a society. That is inevitable. I was raised in the Jewish faith, and my rabbis taught me that one of the lessons in the Bible is that the higher you go in power and authority, the more responsibility you have to conduct yourself appropriately, because it affects everybody else. So, for instance, the most compelling and poignant of all, Moses, the great leader of the children of Israel, takes them to the hills outside the Holy Land, but can't, by God's edict, enter because of one outburst of anger in which he essentially did not demonstrate his faith in God. And there exists always. So I went through a very difficult circumstance when President Clinton, my dear friend, and someone I supported and believed in, got involved in the Monica Lewinsky scandal. And I rose to call him to task and plead with him to apologize and essentially do public repentance, if you will, for what he had done because of the impact his behavior had on the society. And to his credit, he did. And it had a therapeutic, cathartic, healing effect. So there's a lot we can do, and don't feel that. I say to people individually that it's the big media companies and all the others who control us, the politicians. They won't listen to us. They will listen to you because you can vote them out of office, and you can stop using and buying their products and services.
Yeah. I mean, we could go on with you are so articulate and so clear, and your hand is on the pulse, really, of where the things are. To me, is one of the things which is unique about the United States of America. We are the greatest country in the world, no doubt. Nothing comes close. Right. But our image from the January 6th incident, especially when we are exporting our brand of democracy, was defiled. Countries like China will say, is this what you're trying to export to us? Is this the leadership by example? Senator, what can we start to do? Small steps, baby steps, to help restore civility to public discourse.
Yeah, well, first let me say you are absolutely right that what happened at the US Capitol on January 6th, you could view as a matter of domestic disagreement. If you really wanted to, or as somebody said, just like tourists visiting the Capitol, that was nonsense. They went to stop the constitutional process of counting electoral votes to elect a president. And that was unheard of in our history. Not even in the Civil War did anything like that happen. So you could say, oh, that's just domestic. No, everything that happens in the US and anywhere in the world is immediately broadcast digitally to everywhere else. in the world. And that event made people doubt whether America was still the country they believed it to be. A lot of them, I traveled a lot during my time as senator. I still travel a lot around the world. Senator McCain and I traveled together a lot. And we were always struck by how important America was as a beacon of light, of democracy, of human rights, of economic opportunity to people throughout the world. And when we show the world a violent, divisive, ugly side of us as occurred on, and totally illegal, occurred on January 6th at the US Capitol, it diminishes our influence on events around the world, and it diminishes our credibility, and our allies around the world grow very uneasy and insecure, and our enemies are emboldened. So, you know, Bawa, what you and CRL and the World Muslim League are trying to do here is all about civil discourse. It's about domestic tranquility, which the Constitution says is one of the goals of our government, but it's also about our international standing and our national security. And all the programs that you are involved in to advance civil discourse and harmony in our society really are critically important. And I couldn't applaud you enough, and Dr. Al-Issa and others, for what you're doing. It's really the beginning of a kind of resistance to this movement that has diminished our great country. We can come back, but it'll take work like you are doing, and I thank you for it.
No, thank you, Senator. Well, you are in the leadership of the CRL, so we'll always be seeking your guidance, looking to you for direction.
No, anytime. But I really, this is one of those organizations that if it didn't exist, somebody of goodwill would want to create it. So honestly, I'm honored to be part of it. And the work you've done across, I mean, you've set an example. It's not just talking. The bringing together of people of different faiths, nationalities, etc. You know, there are conflicts all the time between people of different religions around the world, unfortunately. But the CRL and the World Muslim League have really reached out and built bridges based on shared faith and shared values. And, you know, ultimately, that may have a greater effect on all the politicians and the diplomats in the world, because our faith really goes right to our heart. As somebody once said to me, political issues matter to me. They're like the shirt I'm wearing, but they're not my skin. They're not my skin. Our faith, our values are our skin. And when you get to that level, there's a lot that every one of us has in common at the level of our skin. And we just have to bring it out and remind people that. And the world will end up being not only more civil, but more safe and more prosperous, and certainly more free.
You know, I think we'll have to do a sequel to this, Senator. I'm cognizant of your time. We are coming to the hour, but I have to just, I just wonder, had Senator John McCain really made the decision and had you as running mate, perhaps the future of our country and the world would have been different. I think it indeed would have. I leave you with this. You know, the creed of the CRL is 3 basic questions, Senator. You brought this up very eloquently, saying the people should see and hold leaders responsible. So what do we see? Do you make decisions based on the present or the future? Are those decisions based on conviction or convenience? Are they constructive or destructive? And then you be the judge. So we want to start having responsible leadership hashtag trending, so people can hold that up to their candidates and say, do you follow these basic things? Answer for yourself. And I think we are committed, Senator. We will seek your leadership again and again and again. And I'm going to keep after you. Thank you so very much, Senator. This has been such an inspiring morning. Thank you so
Thanks,
much from the bottom of
Bawa.
my mind.
I have really enjoyed it and been inspired myself, and your program is just right. I said in a democracy, change comes from the people, but it starts with the people, but it's not implemented until the leaders get the message and change their behavior, because they have the position, authority, power, and I think responsibility to behave better than they've been behaving in America in recent years. So I'm honored to have had the opportunity to talk to you, Bawa, and I look forward to being involved with you, CRL, WML, Dr. Alisa, for years to come, with God's help.